Welcome back to the Lighting Controls Podcast here live at LightFair 2025 down in Las Vegas. Got Charles Knuffke here from Legrand, which we had a sponsored episode yesterday from, which we appreciate, but unfortunately you couldn't join us, so I wanted you to be on the show anyways.
Well, I appreciate the invite. I appreciate you creating a special little niche for us to be able to talk lighting controls. I'm always willing to do that.
I appreciate that. Thank you for coming on.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, when it comes to lighting controls, in the grander scheme of things, like what's going on? What are you seeing being really important to focus on?
Oh, geez. Well, getting them done right.
Fair enough.
Getting them done right, getting them started up right, getting people inside the facility who are going to have to run it, understanding what they are. For as far as we've come, we still are putting in controls that I think, and unfortunately, sometimes being required to by code, putting in controls that are more elaborate than the people who are running them can understand. And nothing against the people. I mean, they've got a lot of things that they've got to worry about. But, in a school that in a poor district, you really want to put in controls that they can't afford to really understand how to work with.
Well, and that's been a consistent theme today in the conversations I've had. You basically need to curate your user interfaces to
excellent word,
meet.
Curating. Absolutely. We have to curate and so you've always got to bring whatever you're dealing with, you've always got to bring a level of empathy and reality to it, which is this really right for this customer? And hopefully the answer is always, yes, it is, or we're going to change it to make it right for that customer.
Right.
Yes.
And I think, Legrand does a really good job of that.
And that would be the Wattstopper brand of Legrand with its various products. Yeah. So when you say Legrand, it's great to be part of a very large multinational company, but I still get a lot of. It's still to the heart that I'm working for a company that has been doing lighting controls for as long as I have, which is 40 years. And we're still seen in the industry as being a valuable resource and a trusted one.
Well, because you see a lot of brands that have been in the industry for a very long time, but they haven't moved from where they were.
Right.
And so, you get the specifiers who just keep re-specifying everything again and again without thinking about, okay, well, there's some innovation that's happened since. But that's not what Wattstopper has done.
We definitely try not to. So I'm going to go back to being to being agnostic to controls in general. But the other that I think are, in addition to what I mentioned before, of course, wireless, because of some certain changes that have recently happened, people are reaching out again, trying to say, okay, so what do we do now for wireless controls? How do we make sure that and it is stunning because the company allows me the opportunity to make recommendations. Whether or not they'll follow them all, that's different. But I'm even making recommendations on analog products because we can easily get caught up in the idea that everything is a full-blown network and it's going to have demand response and it's going to have front-end software and all this stuff. And I keep getting jobs, though, that are outside the major metropolitan areas, and I'm having to go back to the wiring diagrams of my own to try to go, okay, what are all the wires exactly doing, and able to provide somebody a detail that then the contractor can build them out.
So what's driving that kind of mentality instead of a lot of people say, okay, well, networked is the only option. That's what you get. Like, what is driving this demand for analog?
Well, because we were just talking in our session about the energy codes. There are a lot of states that, even though the most recent codes are coming out, when it comes to ASHRAE and IECC, you've got states that haven't necessarily adopted those recent ones. They're 9 years.
Right.
And if you're going back 9 years, there's a requirement for an occupancy sensor. There's a requirement for a switch. There is for daylighting possibly, but there is a network requirement that shows up. So you get parts of the country where the people just are like, listen, we do work on the big jobs, but for when we're building out a store, we're just looking for what's the simplest code that we can put in there.
Well, I think that's important to note because it is very easy to just get sucked into this mentality of networked everywhere, and you are ignoring a really large percentage of the country.
And so we we try to make sure we don't ignore those people.
Yeah, no, of course.
But I mean, it comes up also with, there are certain government jobs, which are always an interesting one, because when they're building a skiff, right, the level 0 product that they want to see has no programming capability, right?
Yeah.
They want wires that either 24 volts or 0 volts, because they don't want to take a risk on anything else.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of funny, those types of facilities are in the simplest of product.
Right.
And also you've got to remember that the people who are typically doing that type, they're going to grow. They're going to get more experience. They're going to be able to do higher levels of controls. So if you can make sure that you're in front of them at the beginning, they'll remember that and go, you know what, as long as these people keep giving me the product that's going to solve my problems, that's what I'm going to keep going with.
No, and I mean, that is basically where we're at with a lot of things when it comes to lighting controls.
Absolutely.
And so, but I think that is sort of the thing you need to keep in mind as you grow forward as a lighting controls manufacturer. Any lighting controls manufacturer still needs to keep in mind what their range is for customers.
And we're fairly lucky in that we do have a broad range, and it's great for me because it means I'm not working on the same thing. If I was doing analog every day, I'd probably be getting pretty bored of it. I'd already have all my CAD drawings done, and it would just be, well, let me pull that one out. But when you're doing standalone, when you're doing small networks, when you're doing full-blown networks, when you're doing wired versus wireless, everything's always exciting. And I truly love the position I'm in. I love the company I work for. And part of it is also I love the fact that every day is a different puzzle. And it's, here are the parameters, here's what we're trying to do. Figure out how to help us solve that. And it's, for me, it's exactly the right thing to make me get up every morning just looking forward to the day.
Definitely. So. No, I can see that. So some advice to our listeners, like based on what we're seeing with this need for confirming, what the end user experience wants to be, confirming what the actual technological needs of the owners of the project is, what can we do as an industry to improve that and get better?
Oh, yeah, we should all be sharing best practices in order to try to do that. I remember going into one college campus in the Bay Area, and what they showed me was they had put together for this campus, and it was a multi-building campus, they had put together this great brochure, and it was like the welcome package of, hey, by the way, here's how your phone works. And also, here's what these funny controls on the wall do. And so trying to figure out, what is really the best delivery mechanism for the people in the space. I think back to a job where somebody called up and said, hey, listen, we're trying to train a bunch of the people in the space. And I said, great, I'll grab my submittal. And the contractor laughed on the phone. He's like, the engineer maybe understood the submittal. These are the people that just need to know what the switch does and why the lights sometimes don't come on. And so swear that this is the story. I said, well, what are they looking for? He says, well, I just want like a 6x9 index card or something like that. And that was my chance to laugh at him and said, no, we'll never be able to do that. I hung up, but I'll be there. We'll figure out something. And I hung up, and I'm like, you know what? I wonder if I can do it on a 6x9 index card. And so I showed up the next day, and it was really basic. By the way, this is how these are going to work. You're going to walk in. This is what's going to happen. And I showed up, and you would have thought I was giving out golden tickets. People were like, oh, my goodness, that's why sometimes when I walk in, right? Now they start thinking through. That's why when I walk in there today, the lights aren't turning off. But when I walk in at night, they are, right? So it's that. You've got to it's all about the empathy of the people in the space. Their job is not to figure out a lighting control. The company has got them there for whatever the reason that they've been hired. So you want to just be as transparent as possible. And you've got to recognize that you've got to make it as easy as possible for folks. Yeah.
No, that makes perfect sense to me. Well, Charles, really appreciate you coming on the show, coming to the live stream. It's great to see you here at LightFair.
It is really a pleasure being back at LightFair. It's been a while, so I'm enjoying my time here. We had a really good, enjoyable presentation, and so thank you very much for finding a little spot for me to be able to chat. So
you bet.
Great to